Welcome, everybody, back to another BOLDcast discussion. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay.
And this is our discussion for Neon Genesis Evangelion episodes 5 to 9. We watched an extra episode this time. And, so for those who don't know, just a reminder, we are watching this series on Patreon. We are probably not going to release the videos on YouTube, because of the copyright surrounding doing reactions for Evangelion, but also because it's just an exclusive series we're doing. We're kind of testing a new thing out where we react to stuff just exclusive on our Patreon, but we don't want to exclude anybody just on YouTube from getting our thoughts on it. I've seen the show. It was one of the first ones I watched, and Lindsay has not. But I haven't watched it since then, so it is kind of like I'm watching it again for the first time. And yeah, so what happened this time? We got introduced to Asuka. That's the big highlight, and we had the Misato episode and the Rei episodes. So we learned about all three of the main ladies.
There was a lot going on this time. We started off kind of where we left off in like very depressing, very serious stakes and occurrences, things that are going on with Rei. We learned a little bit more about her and got to see her in action, and she was prepared to die and sacrifice herself. And just seeing her is a little bit sad, and hearing that she just doesn't really have anyone or a lot of attachments to anything is it's really sad. And we kind of got to see the difference between her and Shinji, whereas she has like completely given herself over to whatever happens. Shinji, he has his moments of that where he like forces himself to do that, but that's not truly the state that he's in. He wants to live. He wants to not be doing this, and he's doing it because he has to and because he feels like he has to. But I think that it's a good thing that he's not like Rei and just going along with anything anyone tells him to do. Yeah. You have anything to say about?
I don't know if I do. We could talk more about like the scenes. There's a scene where I talked about this in the reaction, where the scene of Rei and Shinji when Shinji goes into her apartment. Oh, she has pills. I didn't even see that. I'm just scrubbing through the episode right now.
Probably pain medication.
Oh, probably, right, yeah. Well, yeah, we talked more in depth. If you want to hear more in depth of our discussion about this, you can go to our Patreon and check it out there. But that scene where he goes into her place, like the fact that she lives just basically on the fringes of Tokyo and is so far away and is completely handling herself, but like her entire place doesn't have any personality. It's as if she doesn't give a shit where she's living. But what I found really interesting about that scene is that like the subversion about it. I'm sure this has been talked about to death because this show has been reviewed and analyzed by so many people, but like the subversion in the scene of Shinji going to look at the glasses, but like from a trope meta perspective, I guess you're probably expecting the underwear drawer is like open, and in another show the guy would like go in and check that out, and then he would get caught doing that, and then she would get mad and slap him or whatever and shit, and then they'd fall on each other and have the boob grab. Well, all of that stuff kind of happens, but it's for a completely different reason, and the whole scene is like so interesting because it doesn't I don't know. Yeah, we went more deep into it on our reaction discussion, but it's just so interesting how awkward it is.
Yeah, the vibe was like super awkward and just like.
Yeah, and I talked to the reason I think it's so interesting is because all that stuff is still a trope to this day in anime. Something like that often happens in like contemporary shows, and they were already subverting a staple trope of anime in this show back in 1995, and I thought that was so interesting because I didn't really think of it like that when I saw it for the first time, that they were commentating on that whole thing or using that as a device sort of set up the relationship, and it's just a really cool way to do that. But yeah, Rei's cool. There's less to say about her than especially Asuka, which we just finished watching.
I will say,
their dance
just
episode.
While we're talking about Rei,
Sure.
I feel like we can add on to like kind of the last thing about Rei, which is we noticed in was it episode 9, after Asuka's been introduced, and obviously she is German. And there was an incident where Shinji couldn't speak German, so when him and Asuka were inside Ava Unit 2, he messed it up by not thinking in German, and then she had to switch it to Japanese. But we noticed that Rei is reading, in her spare time at school, she's reading some kind of manual in German. And we've kind of took that as she's learning German so that if she were put in that same position, because she's trying to be useful, she's trying to be able to do anything that anyone asks her to do. She's learning German so that if she were in Shinji's situation, she wouldn't mess it up.
Exactly.
She would think in German. And that's how it would go. Similar to when they're training, she's able to match Shinji perfectly in their
in like the
little
DDR
dance
setup.
routine.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have any like personality or opinions or feelings about the situation to throw her off. Her only job is see what he's doing and do it at the same time, very like mechanically, and she does it perfectly. So that's sort of her character. And then on the opposite end of that, we have Asuka, who's just absolutely, completely out of control from the first moment we see her. She's, like, stomping around, trying to show off her unit, like, well, mine's even better than yours. What do you have to say about that? And it's, yours wasn't even, it's the first one, but it's actually not the first one. Mine's the first real one.
Yeah. She's just in such contrast with everything else. She's, especially she's literally the exact opposite of Rei. She is completely selfish, whereas Rei is completely selfless. Rei has Rei is completely selfless. She doesn't think about herself at all, or her own safety or security at all. Whereas Asuka is only thinking about her own pride and her own ability. She doesn't give a shit about anybody else. And it comes down to their designs, which I mentioned in the reaction. Rei has short blue hair with red eyes, and Asuka has long red hair with blue eyes, and it's like, it comes down to every single detail. They are completely opposite.
I was just thinking, since you were saying that, like, Rei is selfless and Asuka is really selfish, and that's sort of, that, like, even more, like, when you put it like that even more makes me think, like, how Shinji is, like, very in the middle of them. Possibly now, after spending more time with Asuka, I think he's leaning a lot more towards her side. But just in his natural state, when we first met him, he was performing selfless actions, but he was feeling very selfish when he didn't want to do it, and, like, beating himself up for feeling that way. And I don't know, I just think that's...
But Asuka coming to his life is an example of somebody who is being selfish, which, like, Shinji definitely relates to that, but she's doing it in a way that is, I guess, more constructive, like, in a way.
In the situation that they're in, it's
less pessimistic about it.
Yeah.
They're just more
it's
confidence.
Not a bad thing.
She's more self-assured, if not entirely selfish. She's very self-assured, and that, makes her think a lot more of herself. But it also, it gives her the confidence so that she doesn't need to constantly be doubting herself. She's confident in herself. And Shinji, it's rubbing off on Shinji when they are forced to work together. And like the entire tone of the show is completely different. Like when it's all about Shinji or Rei's side of the story before Asuka's introduced, it's one show, and then Asuka comes in and it is a completely different thrill ride where they're jumping off aircraft carriers and doing Dance Dance Revolution, like synchronized combo moves and 80s training montages and shit like that. Like it's an 80s action film.
Even the fights are so different. The fights pre-Asuka were horrific.
Yeah.
They were horrific,
Struggles of life and
traumatizing
death.
events.
Yeah.
the likes of which humanity has never seen before. It's horrible. With Asuka, it's like the angels are a fun challenge, not necessarily fun, but they're a challenge to be overcome, and you can.
It's like a personal challenge, like, and again, like the whole when Asuka, I'm just thinking of this now, that I actually didn't talk about this in the reaction, but like when Asuka first shows up and she's moving her stuff in, and she's talking about privacy, she's like closing and opening the door, and then Misato like appears behind her when she opens the door, and she's like, why are Japanese have no sense of privacy, like how are you supposed to live in a place like this? And then Misato's like, well we think of the whole rather than just yourself, or whatever, however she puts it. And it does, like, that kind of reflects Asuka in a big way, because I'm losing it. I had a good point. Before, it's like the challenges, even just like the fights are like anime and crazy and jumping around and shit, and the stakes are the same, but they don't feel the same. It feels completely different. But you're right, it's like she sees everything as a personal challenge, and we start seeing everything as a personal challenge. The whole like the scale of everything is still there with the aircraft carriers and all the Navy and stuff like that, and everyone is still like giving them all the equipment they need and the training they need, but like their solutions to especially the dance contest, basically, where they had to learn how to cooperate via dance, like the way that they overcame that challenge was by basically shrinking down to just their ability. It was just about them synchronizing together and them developing a rapport between each other. That was the challenge of that episode. Whereas before, a lot of the challenges were like, we need to, all of humanity, all of the country needs to get on board. And it's all about this collectivist sort of momentum that needs to be gathered in order to take down the angel that is threatening all of our lives. Whereas the angels in this case threatened like Asuka's pride and ability. You know what I mean? Like she is, there's that totally time where owned. Rei, exactly, and there was this point where it's just like, oh well, maybe Rei should do it instead of Asuka. She's like, what? And like that's the struggle that she's going through. It's not to do with, you know, humanity, etc., etc. And that also mirrors Shinji earlier on as well, where he didn't feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. He felt the weight of his own life, and what brought him back from when he ran away was a personal tie, a personal struggle that he was going through. That's like you said, he's kind of between Asuka and Rei in that way. And he's like Asuka in that way, where they're both very much teenagers and they can only sort of comprehend and understand the sort of immediate people around them and the immediate stakes around them. Neither of them are thinking of these grand consequences of the world, especially Asuka. They're thinking about their own lives, the people around them. Specifically in Asuka's case, it's more extreme, where she's not thinking about the people around them. She's thinking only about not even her own life. She's thinking only about her ability, and that's what's really interesting about her. At least in the latter episode that we watched, episode 9.
Yeah. Well, and then
it really illustrates both the change in Shinji and the change in tone of the show. Or the change in tone of the show, and illustrates that about them.
It's interesting as well, though, because like as upbeat and like crazy as she is, it seems like that is probably, and her trying to like best herself and prove herself, it seems like that's probably also some kind of coping mechanism for her in its own way, because like in her sleep she's like talking about her mom and crying. And when Shinji goes after her, after Rei like totally destroys her at syncing up with him, she's I can't quite remember what it is, but she's like she's
sulking in the
gas
convenience
station.
Store.
Yeah. And it's a little bit less dramatic for a moment there.
Yeah. And then they like, and that's the start of when they sort of team up and everything. But yeah, just like it zooms in even more to I guess the selfish side, but more like just, I guess, self-centered, not necessarily in a negative or positive way. It's just more focused on, and it's twofold. It's to say something about their characters. That's like the grander thing, but it's from an episode structure standpoint, that sort of device is a really good way to set up them forcing these characters to go together. Like if you're gonna write away, like they have to start communicating, they have to start working together. And what's gonna happen if they do? It turns out Shinji is like more and more enamored because he's closer with a girl than he's ever been before, and he's not because he's gaining that more confidence, he's like confident enough to try and kiss her in her sleep, and then she says something, or she says mama, and then he feels kind of bad and goes and sleeps on the floor away. It's just there's so much going on there, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. And then we also got introduced to Kaji and him trying to flirt with Ritsuko and Misato, and of course he's Misato's ex, and there's a lot more that we're going to get into with all that stuff, because he's still a complete enigma. But yeah, these episodes as a group were, because it wasn't establishing everything like the last batch of episodes were, they're a lot more, I guess, simple. It's just that there's less, not less going on, but it's just, you know, like, there's not as much to talk about in terms of, like, you know, it's not all fresh, it's building in a substantial way, but these are, like, build-up episodes.
And I really like, I'll just mention for a second, like, Ritsuko and Misato is, their relationship is really cool as well. Like, you can tell they're good friends. And I like that. I don't know. I just like it. I feel like it's not, like, too played up. And they're just, like, hanging out. And it's yeah, I don't know. I just thought that it was a really, like, realistic friends portrayal. And I've been thinking that for a while, but especially this episode when they just, like, had that moment of sitting there together. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about this batch of episodes?
I don't know. I feel like that's pretty much it.
We also learned a lot more about the
other
units everywhere.
Yeah, so we learned that there's 6, and then 8 has, like, just been authorized. We also saw,
Jet Alone.
Yes, Jet Alone.
The nuclear version that was sabotaged by Gendo and Nerve.
Yeah, Gendo just, sabotaged it. Even though I think that the idea seemed pretty sketchy in the first place. But, regardless of whether it would have held up in battle or not, he, took matters into his own hands there. And made himself look really, really good, and Jet Alone look really, really bad. So bad that it may not even be attempted again. Ever, perhaps. If a human in there is what it really needs to make it strong. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd say that the overall, out of all the episodes we watched, that was probably, like, the least significant. It was an information dump. It was a way to, like, let us know more about, like, the inner workings
what
of
was
Nerve.
Actually going on.
But it's, you know, that, and a little bit about Misato, and a way to bond between Shinji and Misato, because that was also the episode where she went to the parent-teacher conference. And, like, it ended off with a really happy note of just, like, you idiot, don't you know? And he's like, what? Well, she's acting like that because she thinks you're family. And then that was just the end of the episode. That was really wholesome. Great.
Really nice.
And it's good because in this batch of episodes we did the coolest part of this is that we saw, like, both sides, a new side to Shinji, but just, like, the left and right brain of, like, Rei and then Asuka.
We really got, like, 2 episodes that were Rei focused, sort of like a breather of Misato in the middle, and then we got
Asuka breaking down the door.
just like destroying everything. So I feel like this, like, 5 batch was really nice. Got to, like, get back into what we were already in, and then, like, slowly get into something new.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else.
Oh, we saw little Adam.
Yes.
Which I don't know what that's going to be.
Oh, and you had updated your theories on, like, the whole fucking angel thing.
I feel like my theories are still kind of the same. That the Eva units are, like, made out of angels somehow. And, yeah.
Not much has changed.
That's basically, that's the basic level of the theory. And yeah. Oh yeah, we had the moment where Shinji like basically does the same thing as his dad for Rei, and she like acknowledges that. Yeah.
That was a good moment. Yeah, it's just cool. It's so interesting to see this other side of the story, and to see like Asuka literally adds an entire. It feels like there was an entire third of the story that was like not introduced, and it still felt full before, but it's like there's an entire 30% that was just not like just added completely.
And I can say this, the fact that I feel like the show genuinely really needed this.
Yes.
Needed her, especially given the length. I said, if the show was only 12 episodes, I think you could get away with it just being like the first, 7 episodes or 6 episodes. I feel like you could get away with it just being like that the entire time. But the fact that it's 24?
I think it's
or 23 or something.
I think it's 24 and then the movie. 26 and then the movie.
So the fact that it's 26 episodes long, I think that it would get a little bit, I think it would just get a little bit much to stay so one note the entire time. I feel like it's really good and they did it really well. I'm just glad that they switched it up but didn't lose the quality at all. Just kept it really nice. I also like the detail. We just saw the little camera, how it didn't record onto a cassette, it recorded onto a mini disc.
A floppy disc.
Pretty cute.
Great detail. Yeah, and Adam looks like a little embryo.
Yeah. Frozen but still alive. That's freaky. I wonder if that was like another... Oh yeah, and we found out the truth. This is something that we didn't talk about. We found out the truth about what happened. There was no meteor. My theory was that it was like a meteor, but really it was like...
an egg or something.
An egg or a spaceship or like a housing of these angels. But it seems that the angels were actually there all along.
It's just that the first one fell down and exploded in the North Pole.
Well, they said that it was there, and then they went to look at it, but while they were like poking around at it, then it exploded.
Right, yeah.
And caused all that shit to happen. So that's interesting. I don't know, like, what that means, like, how it got there, if it was just always there, if, like, if, like, the reason we're seeing, like, the first human type thing, and also and they said that it shares a lot of 98 point something or 99.8 or something % of human DNA. If this is like gearing up to be like this was the other like evolutionary track and it like is just completely fucked looking. Or if these were like, if this is like the second wave of humans and there was like humans before, thinking about like, I don't know, that crazy video that you showed me where like humans like evolved different,
All
like
tomorrows.
they like, yeah, that was creepy.
Video,
that was creepy as hell, but like some sort of crazy shit like that happened like once before on this planet and then it got out of control and something happened and they all like went to sleep kind of, and then humans like kind of came again, and then now the previous ones are waking up. If that's I don't know, just throwing out some theories at this point, but
I guess that's all we have to say.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this update on on my rewatch and Lizzie's first watch of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like I said at the beginning, you can check out our Patreon if you want to see those reactions, but every watch session will be giving another deep dive, or at least like a summary of what had happened, and a sort of maybe a little bit of an analysis. But if you want to get like the raw, analysis and reviews, and the discussions, by the way, are like each one of these, if not longer than this, for each episode. When we were thinking that it was hopefully going to be like a chiller show.
The Patreon only show, we won't have to do much of a discussion for those.
The discussions are even longer, and it's
way better and bigger than normal.
Yeah. So they're worth getting, and you can get them on our Patreon, patreon.com/BOLDcast. Hope you consider checking that out. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you like and subscribe. See you in the next one. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay. Bye-bye.